Welcome to Season 2 of It Is What It Is. I'm Zach Mash.
And I'm Peter Putin.
Let's jump right into it. Let's start off with our quick takes from the last couple weeks across the sports world.
On Monday night, a video surfaced of New York Knicks superfan Spike Lee being confronted by Madison Square Garden security. The day after, Spike Lee went on multiple media surfaces saying that Knicks owner Jim Dolan was harassing him. Lee later followed up with him saying that he will not be attending another Knicks game this season. Zach, who do you side with in this story?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't see how anyone in their right mind could side with the Knicks on anything public relations-wise. They are the worst at handling everything. Something with players, awful. Something with celebrity fans, awful. Something with the front office, awful. They didn't even have a press conference for their new president, Leon Rose, this week. How can you be a functioning NBA team and not do that?
Well, and they put out a news report or like a
press release.
Yeah, press release for the Spike Lee incident, and they also did it for when Jefferson. What's his first name? When Jefferson said that he wasn't going to sign with the Knicks, and then they offered.
Oh,
him
Richard Jefferson.
Yeah, Richard
right.
Jefferson.
Yeah.
It's just a mess right now.
They did a zoom-in shot on the handshake between James Dolan and Spike Lee to try and somehow prove that meant that they were okay and that Spike Lee was on.
And it's so disrespectful to Spike Lee, who's been a Knick fan since 30 years ago.
Somehow,
he's the most popular Knick, including the players and the coaches. I don't even know who the coach is right now.
Somehow they managed to alienate a fan of 30 years that goes to every game courtside.
That's like the Lakers alienating
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson or like Kanye West or Snoop Dogg. It's just disrespectful on the highest degree.
It's really unbelievable, but it's the Knicks. So
it's a classic.
On the other hand, it's very believable.
It's something the Browns would do or something the Sixers would do, something on the lines of that.
Over to the NFL, rumors have been swirling around Tom Brady's future with the Patriots, and an especially intriguing idea made its way into the forefront earlier today. It involved the quarterback many consider the greatest to ever do it, heading west to San Francisco with his former protege Jimmy Garoppolo heading back to his roots in New England. Who wins here?
Neither. I think San Francisco, if you want Tom Brady, well, maybe you should have had him like 5 years ago. What are you going to have left with him?
Yeah, because that was plausible.
Okay, I'm just saying, if you want Tom Brady, you want him 5 years ago. Sorry.
So does every other team.
You might have 2 years left, and then you have to go searching for a new quarterback, and you already have a Super Bowl contending defense. You should have somebody who you can have built for the long future. If I were the 49ers, I'll be thinking about maybe going for somebody like Nick Foles, who's not bad, but he can have experience.
Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Nick Foles.
Somebody's a Super Bowl MVP, and somebody also lost to the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, how kidding? About you? Okay, first of all, I think this would be a great move for the Patriots. I think that they really get a chance to right the wrong that they made a couple of years ago. Many people's opinion was that they shouldn't have traded Jimmy Garoppolo, and they should have moved on from the 40-plus-year-old Tom Brady earlier on. And Jimmy Garoppolo knows that system, and I think he would be a good fit there.
Would you want Jimmy G on your team?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Former NBA MVP James Harden was interviewed by ESPN's Rachel Nichols a few weeks ago. In the interview, he responded to Giannis Antetokounmpo's comments during the NBA All-Star Draft, saying that it would be easy if he was 7 feet tall and only needed to dunk. Zach, whose side are you on, Giannis or Harden?
Okay, would I went about it this way? Probably not. But is everything that James Harden's saying completely wrong about this? I would say no. It's certainly easier for Giannis to play the game being nearly 7 feet tall and being able to move the way he does. Is Giannis polished in some phases of his game? Yes. He's a great rebounder. He's a good passer. He has better post moves than people give him credit for sure. However, James Harden definitely has a point, especially with the way he plays. He has had to refine his game. He has had to work on his game tirelessly in order to be who he is today. And I could see why he would have a gripe.
Well, I think James Harden's taking this a little bit too literally. I think Giannis was joking when he said that James Harden only needed to dribble. It was just kind of like a little joke on the NBA All-Star Draft, and everybody. I think he's taking it a little bit too serious, but I do like the little feud that's like bonding between Giannis and James Harden, especially if somehow we can see this into the playoffs and the NBA Finals.
I would like
I
some
think
more
that'd be a
fire
great
as
little
well,
story
even from a little throwaway line.
Especially with like Russell Westbrook, who's always angry, joining that mix.
Always angry. Back to the NFL. The Combine wrapped up this week in Indianapolis, and there were many impressive performances. There were the obvious standouts like former Alabama wide receiver Henry Ruggs, but there were a number of prospects whose performance much exceeded the expectations set for them coming in. Peter, who was your biggest surprise from the Combine?
My biggest surprise was probably Justin Jefferson from LSU, the wide receiver. He ran a 4.4 in the 40, and I think that surprised a lot of draft analysts, especially me. Well, I'm not really a draft analyst, but it surprised me.
I would definitely say you're not a draft analyst, but...
Justin Jefferson is a great wide receiver. He's great at running routes, and he's also a great at catching at the ball. I think he moved his draft stock all the way up to the first round, and I think he'll be a first-round pick.
I agree. In a deep wide receiver class, that was very important for him. For me, it was a 360-plus pound offensive tackle from Louisville, Mekhi Becton, who somehow managed to run a 5.1 in the 40-yard dash. I think he's the most athletic out of all the tackles in the first round. Tristan Wirfs and Jedrick Wills come to mind, and I think he's going to be the first tackle off the board. And I think, to be honest with you, he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think it's all about upside in the first round of this draft, and I think some team will go for that over maybe the more safer bets.
Well, like you said about the wide receivers, the offensive lineman in this draft is pretty stacked, so you could maybe see 3 offensive linemen go in the top 10,
Absolutely.
which is pretty impressive. All right, that'll do for our quick takes here on It Is What It Is. Stay tuned for the meat and potatoes of the show coming up right after the break.
Welcome back to It Is What It Is. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show.
After the Lakers beat the Pelicans on Sunday, LeBron James said that NBA was in great hands in the next generation of superstars, naming players such as Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, Trae Young, Jason Tatum, and Luka Doncic. That got us thinking, who'd be at the top of the league in the next coming years? Zach, who do you have as your top 5 players in the next 5 years?
I'm going to be honest here. There's no real surprises on my list. All these guys are great right now, and I think they'll continue to be great. Giannis Antetokounmpo is number 1. Jason Tatum, who's really made a leap over the last month or so, I'd put at number 2. I have Luka Doncic, who's been playing at an MVP level all year, at number 3. I have Trae Young on the list, who was an all-star starter this year and should only continue to get better after an outstanding rookie season. And Ja Morant, obviously the standout rookie this year, who is athletic as all could be and has been a terrific player this year as well.
Well, I feel like
He's
the
probably
standout
front-runner for
rookie is
the year.
probably the guy from Duke, Zion Williamson. But my list, anyways.
He's played like 10 games, so,
okay,
you know,
well,
whatever.
he's averaging more points and leading his team to the playoffs, but never mind.
Leading his team to the playoffs. Are they currently in the playoffs?
Yeah, but they're
Okay,
leading
never
his
mind.
way
Go to
into
your
the
point.
playoffs.
Go to your point.
All right. So number 1, I have Giannis. Number 2, I got my boy from Chino Hills, LaMelo Ball.
Okay.
At number 3, I have Jason Tatum, just like you did.
Right.
Number 4, I have Ben Simmons, the Australian. And number 5, I have Zion Williamson. I think Zion Williamson, I think in the next 5 years, he's going to become a better shooter, and I think he's going to develop his passing. I think he's just going to become an all-around better player. And then I have LaMelo Ball. He's a great passer, and he's also a really good scorer, and he's 6'6".
Can I ask you a question real
What?
quick? How many full games have you watched from LaMelo Ball?
Probably like 5. How many games have you watched from somebody like R.J. Hampton or James Wiseman?
I didn't put them on my list, did I?
Okay, but I think they're going to be good. And I watched a lot of his Chino Hill games, so.
Okay, well, that's not something I would want to admit, but fair enough.
Okay. At least I don't watch every single game of the Yankees.
Well, that's my problem.
In spring training.
Anyways, on to baseball. A very good segue there. The Houston Astros have certainly gotten their fair share of reaction over the last couple of weeks from players around the league in response to their sign-stealing scandal, but the fan reaction could not be determined until the games began. Spring training has begun now, and the fans have been ruthless as expected. How do you think this will affect their play on the field?
Man, gosh, I just feel bad for those Astro players.
You feel bad for the
yes,
Astros
I
players.
do.
You feel bad for the cheating
yes,
Astros
I
players.
do.
Yes.
Just one mistake, and now everybody
One
hates
mistake,
you. Yes,
ruining
one
the
mistake.
integrity of baseball, America's pastime, and
Just
you
one
feel bad for
mistake.
them.
Yeah, I feel bad for the players that didn't do this, and they're just, they're just chilling in the locker room,
It's called a clubhouse in baseball. Get
okay,
informed.
sorry, calm down. Why are you getting so angry? But I'm just saying, I just feel bad for some of those players, and yes, I do feel like it's going to affect their on-field performances. Maybe not in July and August and that stuff, but in June and May, I think it's really going to affect them.
I think opposing teams' fans are going to flock to their ballpark just to boo them and do all that stuff, and I've already seen it affect them this spring training already.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. Alex Bregman grounded into 2 double plays in his last game
man.
after being booed mercilessly, and George Springer tried to hit a ball 500 feet after being booed mercilessly last weekend. So I think it's already affecting them. Do I think over the long run that they're going to be, 20 games worse than they were before? No, but I think it's definitely going to have some sort of effect on them. I mean, banging trash cans all over the place, booing all over the place, can't not affect you, right?
Well, it might. I mean, if they're tough-minded, I don't think it'll affect them. All right, let's move over
they're
to
not. They had
college
to cheat,
basketball.
so.
What?
They're not. They had to cheat.
Okay, let's move over to college basketball. The ACC tournament starts next Tuesday in Greensboro, North Carolina. Number 10 ranked Louisville is projected to be the number 1 seed in the tournament, and number 7 Florida State is projected for the number 2 seed in the tournament. Zach, who do you see lifting the ACC tournament trophy?
I think you have to go with the favorites at the top of the conference. I think you got to go with Louisville and you got to go with Duke. And trust me, that is
Wait,
that's no groundbreaking take right there.
Can you just give me one? lifting it.
Okay, I'll say Duke.
Okay.
I think Wendell Moore has been maybe the best all-around player in the conference this season and gives them a real inside presence that is tough to compete with the other teams in the ACC. And I think that they've probably been the best team in the conference all year, and I think that they'll show it up once again in the tournament. But I'll tell you one team that's not going to win, and that will be the Syracuse Orange.
No, they're
Much
not.
to our dismay.
I think Florida State will win. They're actually the highest-ranked team in the ACC, highest-ranked ACC team in the nation, but the second in the ACC. But a team to look out for is UNC. They just beat Syracuse by like 12 double digits at the Carrier Dome, and I think you should watch out for Cole Anthony, a top 5 draft prospect in 2020. And I think he might be able to lead his team to maybe a semifinals, maybe even the finals of the ACC tournament.
I agree. North Carolina is definitely maybe the most dangerous lower seed in the ACC tournament in some time. I mean, you wouldn't really normally look at a team that went 5-11 in the conference or something like that as a competitor. But like you said, Cole Anthony has the ability to be one of the best players in the country, and if he gets hot and can carry them, they definitely have as good a shot as anyone.
And I think if they beat Duke this Saturday or whenever they play Duke again, I think that'll give them a lot of momentum because I think that's the last game they play into the ACC tournament, and I think they might be able to shock a few people in the tournament.
No doubt. Well, let's move back up to the pro ranks. With so many great performances in the NBA recently, it gets you to thinking about how players playing today stack up with the greats of the past. If you had to narrow it down to just 4 players all time, what would be your Mount Rushmore of the history of the NBA?
Okay, so I kind of split this up. 2 players that I've watched play my whole entire life, and then just 2 great players that I never was able to witness play. So, no particular order. First, I have LeBron James. In my opinion, the greatest player to ever play the game, and definitely the greatest player of this generation.
Fair.
Number 2, I have Kobe Bryant, the 5-time NBA champion. He left a legacy on basketball in the NBA forever, and his legacy will live on forever. And then I have MJ, arguably the greatest player of all time, your greatest player of all time. Changed the game forever, inspired a lot of this young generation. And then finally, I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think he's one of the most underrated players of all time. A 6-time champion, and he's also the leading scorer of all time in the NBA. Just a great all-around player, and he did a lot for the game also off the court. If you look at all these players, they changed the game on and off the court.
That's definitely a great list for you, but I think I have a better one, to be honest with you.
You do?
And what way to have a Mount Rushmore of the NBA than the greatest team of all time in NBA history, and that would be the 2012-13 Knicks. So my Mount Rushmore is J.R. Smith, who's currently unemployed, however, is a great player, as athletic as anybody.
How many players on this list are actually employed?
Let me finish my point, please. Raymond Felton, great point guard. I mean, I don't think I can say anything else about that. He distributes the ball. He scores the ball. You can't ask for anything more. Carmelo Anthony, probably the GOAT. I mean, let's be honest. Probably the greatest scorer of this generation. Can score anyway. 3-pointers, free throws, mid-range game, probably the most polished mid-range game maybe of all time. Can drive to the basket. Always was athletic as well. And the last one would be, of course, everyone knows him, Iman Shumpert. Lockdown defender, great shooter. I don't think you can really have any contest about this list.
I mean, how can I disagree?
You can't.
That's it for the meat and potatoes for this episode. We'll get into our biggest winners and losers coming up next.
Once again, welcome back to the show. Let's get to our biggest winners and losers. Peter, who is your biggest winner this week?
I had Gardner Minshew, the quarterback from Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, there's reports coming out that the Jaguars want to trade Nick Foles away, and if they do that, then that just gives him the starting job. I think Gardner Minshew is a solid quarterback, maybe the best quarterback coming out of the 2019 draft.
Definitely not the best quarterback coming out of the 2019 draft.
He might be the best quarterback he kind of reminds me of Baker Mayfield for some reason.
Baker Mayfield is pretty bad, so that's interesting.
Well, he broke the rookie passing touchdown, so by Peyton Manning, who's a Hall of Famer, so I think that's pretty impressive. But anyways, Gardner Minshew, I think he's a solid quarterback. I think the Jaguars just need to draft a couple wide receivers to give him some weapons around him, and if they keep Leonard Fournette, who's a solid running back for the Jags, I think he's in good shape for the future.
I definitely agree, and I would say that Gardner Minshew had a rookie season that exceeded basically anyone's expectations for him. I mean, I'll be honest, I had never heard of the guy before the NFL season, so the fact that he made such an impression to now be an impending starter for the Jaguars is definitely impressive, and he's definitely a huge winner with them wanting to trade Nick Foles, who they signed to a mega deal just last offseason. To trade him away right now shows their belief in Minshew, and I think that he's definitely going to be pretty happy about that.
Hopefully he's happy about that. Hopefully he's not like Jay Cutler. All right, what about you?
My biggest winner of the week is going to be Jadeveon Clowney, the free agent edge rusher from the Seattle Seahawks. You see all the edge rushers around the league, they're getting franchise tagged. You got Eric Armstead, you got Yannick Ngakoue. All these
Barrett.
guys, you got Dante Fowler Jr., Shaq Barrett, all these guys are getting franchise tag, which means that really the one player, edge rushers, who get paid big anyways, that's going to be free of any franchise tag designation is going to be Jadeveon Clowney. And there's going to be some desperate team out there that's going to give him basically a blank check of whatever he wants. Over $100 million, I think you're being, conservative with that. Some team's going to give him whatever he wants. It could be my New York Giants.
Yeah.
Maybe I hope so. Maybe I don't. But it definitely could be my New York Giants.
Like you said, I feel like a lot of teams are going to be bidding for Jadeveon Clowney, especially if Shaq Barrett and Ngakoue get franchise tag. He's an excellent player. He's a little bit inconsistent, and he does get injured.
History as well.
Yeah, he does get injured on time to time, but he's a solid rusher, and you can put him at almost every position on the defensive end, or you can switch him to outside linebacker and have him from rush. He can fit the 3-4 or the 4-3, so he's really a little bit can do anything else. And he's also a pretty good run stopper, and he can always, on occasion, go out on pass coverage.
The other thing about Clowney, too, is there's a lot of untapped potential there.
Yeah,
I mean, you see the ability to really wreck a game. You saw it in the playoff game against the Eagles last year. You've seen it over the years. He's had years where he's almost reached double-digit sacks, but he hasn't. So some team is going to pay him as that premier pass rusher.
Especially if it's a really good defensive team. Like, I know the Giants, they have a lot of money, but
they
don't
need a centerpiece.
They don't have that defensive coordinator that can involve a player and make him like.
Well, I hope they do,
potential.
but we definitely don't have a history of doing that. No, but we also don't have very many good defensive players. So
yeah, but I feel like Clowney, he might want to go to the Giants because there's the history of a great defensive player, such as maybe the greatest defensive player of all time in LT, and a lot of people were comparing Clowney in his draft class to LT. I mean, he definitely hasn't lived up to that, but you never know.
Definitely. We'll see what Clowney ends up getting in free agency. Who would be your biggest loser?
So I have the Italian Association of Football, Serie A in general. They just announced today that they're going to be banning fans from going to the games due to the coronavirus until April 3rd. That's a month away. I think this will really affect the teams, especially teams like Juventus, Lazio, Inter Milan that are vying for that Champions League or vying for that league title. I think it will really affect those teams, and it kind of just takes the emotion out of the game. It's just kind of boring now. Like there's no crowd emotion, and
I'm going to be honest, I don't have much insight on that, but my biggest loser for the week would be Yannick Ngakoue on that same token that I was talking about before. Yannick Ngakoue has been persistent on social media with his desire to get away from the Jaguars, and what do the Jaguars do? They slap the franchise tag right on him. So what else can you do? I mean, he's pretty much stuck there for the time being.
All right.
So he's pretty much stuck there for the time being. There's really nothing he can do about
it. Well,
I
think he will be traded. There's rumors that my team, the Buffalo Bills, might make a trade for him. They might give him like a third or a fourth. He's a really good player, and I think when he finds his team, he's going to get a big payday, just like Jadeveon Clowney. He's a solid player. He had, 11.5 sacks last year?
Yeah, he had that a couple years ago.
So I think he's a really solid player. He might be the best defensive end in this free agent class if he somehow doesn't get franchise tag. It is unfortunate that he can't choose his own team, but he's still on a one-year deal, so if the team he gets traded to for some reason doesn't like him or he just doesn't fit with the team, he can always just sign a new deal.
Well, the real question is a team willing to give up what it's going to take to get Yannick Ngakoue? And if you look at a formula such as Dee Ford last year was traded to the 49ers, they had to give up a first-round pick plus some to get Dee Ford. So is anyone going to pay that price for Yannick Ngakoue?
Yeah, but A.J. Boye just got traded for a third-round pick. I know he's not like a
He's
top,
older for Ngakoue.
Yeah, and he's not a top corner, but, it's still the Jaguars making the move, and you never know, especially because of the reports that Tom Coughlin had trouble with the players. That's drastically going to bring down the price. I think maybe a second at most, depending on the team, of course. If it's like the Patriots or a contending team, it might have to be a first or maybe a player in exchange, which is very unlikely because of the way how NFL trades work out, but you never know.
And again, you got to have the cap space. That's the other thing, is that you have to either have the cap space to A, absorb the franchise tag number, which is probably going to be around $18 million.
Yeah.
And B, you have to have the cap space to sign him to a long-term deal if you have to do that.
Yeah,
and that's probably going to be upwards of $20 million a year. And how many teams really have that money available to give to one player?
And especially what if this is a little bit more of like a one-hit wonder, or like it's my contract year, I'm just going to play well. You've seen that from a lot of players, C.J. Spiller, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Albert Hainsworth going back a little bit
I have
farther.
a lot of experience with Ryan Fitzpatrick playing well in his contract year, and then, can't say the word, but not doing well.
Fitzmagic. Well, we'll be right back on It Is What It Is. Up next, we'll close the show with our takeaways from this past week.
It is what it is. Let's get into our takeaways. Zach, what was your takeaway from this week of sports?
My takeaway from this week in sports is that Tom Brady, believe it or not, as hard as this is to comprehend, I think there's a really good chance that he leaves the Patriots. I mean, there's been multiple teams mentioned this week in the running. You saw him FaceTiming at the Syracuse game this last weekend with Tennessee Titans coach Mike Vrabel. And that's a possibility for him. If they let Ryan Tannehill go, Marcus Mariota obviously has overstayed his welcome there. That's a chance for him. The Las Vegas Raiders have obviously been mentioned repeatedly. You got other teams like the Chargers that are going to be in on this. And, you know, you could have a surprise team like the 49ers, like we mentioned in the previous segment. They're all going to be vying for his services, and to be honest with you, it doesn't seem like there's that much interest on either end, the Patriots or Tom Brady, of him coming back.
Well, you never know. Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. You maybe have the Colts. That would be really weird if the Colts got Tom Brady through their past history. And there's also the Chargers, and like you said, the Raiders. I think the Raiders is pretty interesting because you saw Dana White today. I don't know if you saw this. He FaceTimed Tom Brady on Instagram Live, trying to convince him to join the Raiders, obviously because of UFC. A lot of things go down in Vegas.
I mean, since Peyton Manning, I don't think there's really been a higher profile free agent in NFL history than even 42-year-old Tom Brady.
Well, there's not that many free agents in football to begin with.
This just doesn't happen very often, so it's definitely surprising, and I'm very curious to see how this turns out.
It's going to be one of the most interesting free agent classes in a long time.
What would be your takeaway from the
My
week?
biggest takeaway is that I feel like Liverpool will lose to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League this week. Now, they do play at Anfield, their home, and they did come back from a 4-0 deficit against Barcelona last year, but something about these couple weeks, losing to Watford, losing to Chelsea, and Chelsea, they played Van Dijk, who is a runner-up to the Ballon d'Or, and I feel like it's just kind of it seems like signs are changing, and even though they're still going to win the Premier League, I think they're going to lose to the Champions League, and I think they're going to lose out in the round of 16 to Atletico Madrid, who is a very solid defensive team. How about you?
Well, as you said, they are at home, so they definitely might be able to get a result there.
Yeah. All right. Zach, what's the game of your week?
My game of the week is going to be Friday night. It is Lakers-Bucks. It is the top teams in both conferences. The Lakers obviously have been playing great recently. LeBron is playing some of the best ball of his season. Anthony Davis arguably might be playing better than anyone on the Lakers. And then you have the Bucks, of course, with Giannis Antetokounmpo in the best record in the league. They're chasing 70 wins. That should be a great matchup on Friday on ESPN.
Well, yeah, and my game of the week, it's always a great game if it's on Sunday at 3:30. And you have the Lakers playing against their crosstown rivals, who I absolutely despise. It's disgusting. I don't even want to say their name, but I have to. It's Clippers versus Lakers at 3:30.
You don't want to say the name of the Clippers.
Yeah, it's just disgusting. If they buy the Forum, it's just going to be
well, I mean, one of your favorite players, Patrick Beverley, is on that team.
Yeah, so. Patrick Beverley. Oh. But anyways, it's going to be a great game. Kawhi Leonard versus LeBron James. Paul George, hopefully if he plays. We never know with Paul George. Paul George versus Anthony Davis. And then you also, this is an intriguing matchup, you have Markieff Morris versus Marcus Morris, the brothers against the brothers. And I think that's going to be a really
The Morrises definitely like to mix it up, so that's definitely an intriguing matchup. It could be a Western Conference preview.
Yeah, Western Conference final preview, and hopefully it will be.
Hopefully it will be. I think that would be great for the league. That's going to wrap up episode 1 of our second season here on It Is What It Is. We'll see you back here in 3 weeks. Have a great night, everyone.